Two men stand shoulder to shoulder in the front line, spears leveled, death crowding in on every side. One of them is Sarpedon, a son of Zeus. He turns to his friend Glaucus and speaks. If only the two of us could escape this war, he says, and live on forever, ageless and never dying, then I would not fight here in the front ranks, nor would I send you into the battle where men win their glory. But the spirits of death stand about us in their thousands, and no man alive can turn them aside or escape them. So let us go forward. Either we win glory for ourselves or we hand it to another. Hear the strange logic buried in those words. Not, since we must die, let us live carefully and reach old age. Instead, since we must die anyway, let us run toward death and seize a fame that never dies. This is the riddle at the heart of the Iliad. The only lasting life this world offers can be bought with a single price, a death, dealt to another or suffered yourself. To be a hero here is to be trapped inside a contradiction. The one immortality open to a mortal is imperishable fame, the memory of the living spoken aloud after death, and it can be earned only by killing or by dying. Over the next 20 minutes, we take that paradox apart piece by piece, and it begins with what this poem believes death itself to mean. The Iliad has been called a poem of death, and not simply because so many people die in it. Its deepest subject is the human condition, and above all, what it means to be mortal. Again and again, the poem returns to death and to the weight it presses on every human life. But the harder question is not whether we die. It is whether a human being can ever truly come to terms with dying. That struggle, the capacity or the failure to accept death, is among the poem's deepest concerns, and everything the story builds turns, in the end, on one man's answer to it. That man is Achilles. First, he refuses utterly to accept the death of Patroclus, the companion he loves beyond all others. His grief hardens into a fury that nearly consumes the poem. Only later does he arrive at a bitter recognition. Everyone must die. Even the most beloved of all must die, and such deaths in the end have to be accepted. The whole resolution of the Iliad rests on that single human reckoning with loss, the rejection of death, and then at last, its acceptance. It is the axis the entire poem turns upon. At the center of it all sits one Greek word, Kleos. We usually translate it as glory or fame, but its literal meaning is stranger and simpler. Kleos is what people say about you. It is the sound of your name spoken aloud out in the world by the living after you are gone. Not what you own, not what you feel, what is said of you when you are no longer there to hear it. That, and nothing else, is glory, and it is the philosophical heart of the whole poem. The word is older than it looks. Our own verb, to call, grows from the very same ancient root. The Greek kaleomai means to speak aloud, to name, to call out. Set Kleos and call side by side, and you can still hear the kinship, the same K, the same L. And remember the world this poem comes from. There is no writing here, no records, no archives, not even a name cut into a tombstone. When a person dies, spoken memory is the only monument there is. The single way to keep someone from vanishing completely is to go on speaking of them aloud after they are gone. Achilles gives this glory its full and terrible name. In Book 9, he lays out the two fates that lie before him. If he sails home, he will live a long life, and his fame will die with him. If he stays at Troy and falls in battle, his Kleos will be aphthiton, a word meaning imperishable. Undying, indestructible. Kleos aphthiton, undying fame. This is the prize the Homeric warrior fights and bleeds and dies for. And it is exactly what epic poetry itself confers, the song that carries a name down the centuries. How old is this idea? Older perhaps than the Greek language itself. The phrase Kleos aphthiton is matched almost word for word by a phrase in ancient Sanskrit, Shravas akshitam. Sanskrit is the old sacred language of India and one of the three oldest Indo-European languages to leave behind a great literature, standing beside Greek and Latin. Scholars of this deep past believe that Kleos and Shravas are twin descendants of a single lost word, and that aphthiton and aphthiton likewise come down from one shared ancestor spoken long before either Greece or India existed. Think about what that means. Long before writing, before those first speakers scattered across Europe and India, carrying their language with them, they already possessed a phrase for imperishable glory. It survives in Greek as Kleos aphthiton and in Sanskrit as Shravas aphthiton. Some scholars press further, though the point is disputed. They imagine an ancient tradition of praise poetry reaching back thousands of years, in which undying fame was conferred upon dead heroes by song. It would explain a haunting fact. The same phrase, meaning fame that poetry grants to the memory of the dead, surfaces in both Greek epic and Indian verse in almost the same breath. If poetry is the only real survival, it is because the alternatives offer so little. Homer does allow a kind of afterlife. When a warrior falls, he is not simply wiped out of existence. Something leaves the body and drifts down into the underworld. The Greeks called it the psyche. The word looks like our psyche, but it is not the mind that modern psychology studies. At first, the psyche was the breath. The word almost sighs as you say it, the last breath sliding from a dying man's lips. Only later does it swell into something larger, a soul, a spirit. The ghost of a self, which does survive death, crosses into the dark, and can even, under certain conditions, be recognized again. But what a wretched survival it is. In Book 11 of the Odyssey, the dead flit through the gloom like bats, gibbering, senseless. They no longer recognize one another. They no longer know who they are, until they're given a drink of dark sacrificial blood, and their wits flicker back for a single moment. This is no reunion, no paradise, no glorious meeting of old friends. It is vague, insubstantial, and unpleasant, the palest imaginable substitute for life in this world. So one thing alone can offer real immortality, not the drifting, witless swoosh in the dark. Only Kleos, only what the living keeps saying about you, once you're gone. Because it is the one thing that truly endures, Kleos comes to outweigh everything else. It outweighs even honor itself, the prize a Greek called time. Honor matters in the end, chiefly for the amount of Kleos it brings, and so all through the Iliad, one warrior after another is shown in pursuit of this undying fame, each lifted up in turn into a blazing scene of valor that scholars have a name for. They call it an aristeia. An aristeia is the poem's close-up. For a few lines or across whole books of the epic, the camera fixes on a single hero at the very summit of his fighting, and it follows a recognizable shape. He arms himself first, and the poet lingers on the armor, its flash, its brightness, its terrible beauty in the light. Then he bursts into the enemy ranks, cutting them down, turning the whole tide of battle. In the midst of his triumph, he is wounded and his sight falters. He prays to a god, is healed, is filled with fresh strength, and hurled back into the fight. He kills some great enemy, and the savage struggle erupts over the corpse until the body is torn away from him, and the aristeia ends. And this pattern belongs to both sides of the war. Hector has his aristeia, and so do warrior after warrior among the Greeks. It can be as short as a handful of lines, or, in the case of Achilles, stretch across several books of the poem. Long or short, brief flash or sustained blaze, its purpose is always the same. It fixes one fighter forever at his brightest, deadliest moment. Not every element appears in every instance, but that is the shape of the scene. And this is memorial turned into poetry. The bard freezes one man on the single day he fought best, and shows exactly how Agamemnon or Menelaus or Diomedes or Hector or Patroclus fought when he fought like a god. This is the very substance of Kleos aphthiton, the thing they are all straining to win. And the greatest aristeia of all, the one the whole poem climbs toward across its final books, belongs to Achilles. Now look hard at how this glory is actually won. A hero earns undying fame by fighting as magnificently as he possibly can, and by killing as many of the enemy as he possibly can. And there, the contradiction opens beneath our feet. The only immortality this world allows can be seized in one way only, through killing or through dying, and very often through both. The single road that leads beyond death runs straight through the middle of death itself. That tragedy is buried inside the word Kleos, and the Iliad returns to it, again and again. One of its clear statements is the one we began with on the front line, where Sarpedon turned to Glaucus in Book 12. And this is the same Glaucus who, back in Book 6, met the Greek warrior Diomedes in the space between the armies. The two discovered an old bond of friendship between their houses and refused to fight each other. Then Zeus stole Glaucus's wits and he traded away his golden armor for bronze, giving up gear worth 100 oxen for armor worth only 9. To this same friend, Sarpedon speaks the plainest truth in the poem about what these men are dying for. And his answer cuts hard against everything our instinct tells us. We might expect him to reason like this: since death cannot be escaped, let us live carefully, hang back from the front, and stretch our days toward old age. That, in fact, is very nearly what Achilles decides in Book 9. But Sarpedon reasons the opposite way. Since death is certain no matter what we do, let us spend it well, in the very act of winning glory. And here is the crucial thing. It is Sarpedon, not Achilles, who speaks for almost every warrior in the poem. Achilles is the strange one. No one, though, lives inside that contradiction more fully than Achilles himself. He is a strange kind of human being, and several unusual things about him shape the whole story. Start with his mother. She is a goddess. Now, he is not the only half-divine hero on the field. Sarpedon is a son of Zeus. Aeneas, a minor Trojan here who will one day become the hero of Virgil's great Latin epic, the Iliad, is the son of Aphrodite. But Achilles alone has a divine parent who comes to him and talks in long, intimate, unhurried conversations, a goddess mother speaking with her mortal son. Set that against the other divine parents. When Aeneas is about to be killed, Aphrodite swoops down and lifts him clear of the battlefield, exactly as she once carried Paris out of danger in Book 3. But the instant Diomedes scratches her hand with his sword, she drops her own son and flees in pain. Her love is real and it is shallow. In the gods, maternal concern tends to be seen. No other divine parent in the poem carries on the long, involved conversations that Thetis has with Achilles, and none shows anything close to her devotion. And what they speak of matters as much as the fact that they speak at all. Every time Thetis comes to her son, she begins by grieving how brief his life will be and her own misfortune in being the mother of a boy so soon to die. Their conversations turn again and again on death, on the little span he has, on the mortal thing he is. This gives Achilles something no other man in the poem possesses. It is a view of his own mortality from the outside, almost the view the deathless gods themselves have, looking down. And that knowledge is rarer than it sounds. Most men in the Iliad have no such bond with any god. Even if another warrior stood before the very same two fates, no divine voice would ever come to tell him so. So the wonder is not only that Achilles has a choice, it is that he is among the very few ever allowed to know he has one. The knowing itself is the strange gift, and it reaches him through his mother, because the gods see a man's fate long before the man himself does. On the surface, Achilles faces the same choice every soldier faces. Stay and fight, and you will probably die. Slip away home and you will probably live a long, quiet life. But probably is the whole difference in the world. Other men only know they might die or might grow old. Achilles knows. Stay and he dies for certain. Sail home and he lives for certain. Compare Hector, who in Book 6 can foresee in almost a single breath that Troy will fall, that he himself will die, that his wife will be dragged into slavery, and yet still hope his little son will grow up to outfight his father. Hector imagines both fates. He never learns which is his. Achilles knows his exactly. That certainty is what makes his refusal in Book 9 so much larger than it first appears. When Achilles throws off the values of his whole society, when he declares that he no longer cares for honor and no longer needs Kleos at all, he is not simply walking away from the warrior's code or the ground his life was built on. This is not a sulking soldier. It is a man who has seen the machinery of his own culture from the outside and refused it. He is questioning his world's entire idea of what it means to be human, because in the Iliad, to be human is, by definition, to be the one who dies. Which is why the gods stand over the whole poem, a mirror held up to mortal men. The Greeks call the gods the athanatoi, the deathless ones, the ones who simply cannot die. It is exactly what our word immortal once meant before the sense war sin. The resonance a Latin speaker felt hearing Morse, death, buried inside the word. And mortals they call the snitoi, the dying ones, though the word leans almost toward the dead ones, as if a human life was so brief against the backdrop of eternity that we are half gone already the moment we are born. The gods are the deathless. We are the all but dead. Set the two side by side and you'll see at once why glory belongs to one and not the other. In the Iliad, Kleos is a strictly human thing. The gods cannot die and so they can never win it and they never need it. Why would a deathless being crave a fame that outlasts death? They need no song to keep them present in the world, no imperishable name proclaimed after them, because they are never absent, never gone. They are always present, always here, always alive. That gulf between the undying gods and the dying men is the very line that defines what a human being is in this poem. And here is the cruelty of it. The gods are otherwise so much like us. Homer's gods are human to an astonishing degree, in shape, in face, in feeling, in the things they do. It was not the only way to picture the divine. Other peoples imagined gods with no human form or character at all. But Homer's gods feast on nectar and ambrosia instead of bread and wine. They sleep, they quarrel and fight. They take lovers, they blaze with love and hatred. They are human beings drawn on a vast scale, with a single difference. They cannot grow old and they cannot die. We must do both. And the Iliad presses that one distinction far harder, far more insistently than the Odyssey ever does. The poem drives the point home in the deaths of its men. On the battlefield, almost every conceivable way to kill is shown, and shown without flinching. Skulls split open by axes, spears driven up through the belly or into the soft base of the throat, arrows finding their mark, and yet notice a strange pattern in all this carnage. Every wound is either slight or instantly fatal. A man takes a light hurt, is bound up by a comrade or a healer, and hurries back into the fight, or else he dies almost at once. Homer never lets a warrior linger for days in agony, never leaves one crippled and broken, but alive. This is no squeamishness. The gore is everywhere. By cutting away the middle, he keeps our eyes fixed on the one thing that defines us, death itself. And against that unrelenting darkness, Homer sets the ease of the gods, and the contrast is deliberate, and it never once lets up. It keeps the human condition constantly before us. The gods are the ones who live easily, the rhaezontes, the ones with no care, no trouble, no grief in all the world. And there we stand beneath them, carrying every trouble there is, every worry and sorrow and loss, and required to die on top of it all. So here at last is the paradox of glory in its fullest form. The only immortality a Homeric hero can genuinely hope for is bought with death, dealt to another, or born in his own body. And behind that grim bargain stand the gods, exempt not only from death but from age and from every trouble and worry there is. To be human in the world of the Iliad is to be the creature who must die and who can defeat death in one way only, by dealing it or by enduring it. The hero's imperishable fame is a small, fierce light. It can be kindled only in the dark of our mortality, and it burns all the brighter for the deathless, careless gods who stand forever in the eternal sunlight and will never ever need it.